Thank you so much. Merci tout le monde. C'est un plaisir d'être ici pour partager des informations sur l'enjeu de la crise du logement national et le plan pour adresser l'enjeu très important. It's really exciting today. We are going to help solve the national housing crisis, and today we are producing our plan that's going to get us there. The plan is going to involve three key pillars. The first is to build more homes to cure the supply gap that exists. The second is to make it easier to rent or buy a home in this country. And the third is ensuring we're doing more to help those who cannot afford a place to live. I'm going to spend just a few minutes walking you through the key elements of the plan. And of course, we'll gladly take questions on the back end. In order to build more homes, we first need to reduce the cost of home building. It's become very expensive to build homes in this country as a result of increasing costs of materials, labor, land, supplies, interest, development charges, and we want to help. We're going to be introducing a series of different tax measures that will reduce the cost of home building for large-scale home builders. We're also going to be introducing low-cost financing programs, not just for big institutional builders, but for individual homeowners who wish to add an additional unit to the lot on which their home is already located. We also are going to be launching a fundamental shift in the way that we use federal lands to get homes built in this country, including by maintaining ownership on federal lands that may be appropriate for home building, by entering into long-term leases that will help reduce the cost of building homes on that land by reducing the input costs that land represents, which will in turn not only reduce the cost of home building, but the cost of living for the people who live in those homes. In addition to reducing the costs of home building, we also need to make it easier to build homes. This is where programs like the Housing Accelerator Fund come in, which has fundamentally shifted the way that municipalities across Canada zone and permit home building by allowing more homes on individual lots, by ensuring we're planning to build more homes near transit, near infrastructure that already exists, and near services and opportunities that people and families need to succeed. We're also going to be moving forward with new infrastructure investments, whether that's the home enabling infrastructure policies announced more recently, or the conditions we'll be placing on the Permanent Public Transit Fund, as well as a certain other series of measures. In addition to putting these federal funds on the table in exchange for commitments from municipalities, not just to build infrastructure, but to make it easier to build homes, we've also worked with the Canada Infrastructure Bank to direct them to create more housing enabling infrastructure programs that will allow us to expand through low-cost financing public infrastructure that will grow housing supply in this country. In addition to reducing costs and making it easier to build homes, we also need to change the way that homes are built and scale up the home building industry. There will be major investments made to train the Canadian home building workforce. This will include not just funding for training and apprenticeships, but also foreign credential recognition and measures that make it easier for workers in one part of the country to do their jobs in other parts of the country. We also have released initiatives that will help scale up home building in factories in this country by supporting the adoption of new technology, supporting regional development agencies to help scale up home building factories that already exist, and by carving out a portion of the apartment construction loan program that's specifically dedicated for homes that will be manufactured in a prefabricated setting to achieve the orders that so many home building factories tell us they need to achieve a level of scale. We can't just build more homes. We also need to help people who are seeking to rent or buy a place to live by making it easier. We are moving forward with a Renters' Bill of Rights, a tenants protection fund, and new measures that will allow renters to use their rental history as credit. We are also cognizant of the journey that a person goes through as they seek to build a home. It's not enough that they just establish credit. They need help saving up for a down payment. This includes the adoption of the First Home Savings Account and new measures announced yesterday that will make it easier for people to withdraw from their RRSP through the Home Buyers Plan, to make it more generous and give them more time to start paying it back. This is going to help with the down payment, but we're also changing the amortization rules for people who buy a new home, including condos, to help reduce the monthly payment by extending the repayment period from 25 to 30 years for first-time home buyers. There's other measures that we're going to be launching that will help free up existing stock and reduce pressure in the markets that make it difficult to buy because it drives up the price. This includes measures around short-term rentals that will help communities enforce the rules that they put in place. It'll include extension of the foreign buyers ban and cracking down on mortgage fraud and real estate fraud, which artificially inflates the price of homes in this country. We'll also be launching a consultation that will help restrict access to single-family homes and homes for families more generally that are being bought up by corporate investors. After we build more homes and make it easier to rent or buy, we still owe an obligation to our country's most vulnerable and have a series of measures that are designed to ensure that Canadians go to sleep with a roof over their head. This includes moving forward with significant investments in affordable housing. We know that homelessness is caused by a lack of affordable housing, and we'll be moving forward with multi-billion-dollar programs to help construct more affordable housing, whether that is social housing, cooperative housing, housing for Indigenous peoples in urban, rural, and northern environments, or other supports. But in addition to building more affordable housing, we're launching an acquisition fund, the Canadian Rental Protection Fund, to ensure that we don't lose housing that's available for low-income families that already exists. This is a $1.5 billion federal program that we expect will attract additional investments from charitable foundations, provinces and territories, and potentially other actors that will allow us to achieve a scale that will help us prevent the loss of existing units that are offered at affordable prices that already exist. And finally, we're going to be working with communities directly that are helping people transition from homelessness and encampments into more durable solutions. We're going to be partnering directly with the cities that demonstrate the greatest level of ambition to adopt housing-first policies so they can eliminate encampments in their cities. If we build more homes, make it easier to rent or buy a home, particularly for young people in this country, and continue to support our most vulnerable, I believe that we can solve the housing crisis. This is an important day that will fundamentally change the direction of housing policy across Canada. We can solve the housing crisis, but we can't do it alone. We need provinces and territories to join us. We need cities to change the way that homes are built in this country. And we all need to support those who are going to build homes and those who are going to support people who need homes. I'm filled with a sense of optimism, not based out of a blind belief this will happen, but based on the fact that I spend so much time working with the people who are implementing solutions in their communities today. I'm very grateful for your time and attention. The plan that we've released to solve the national housing crisis is a major step in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Merci, Minister Fraser. Ministre Martinez Ferrada, avez-vous des commentaires?
Non, je pense qu'il y avait de la traduction. J'ai pas de commentaire. Peut-être juste dire tout simplement qu'aujourd'hui, l'annonce qui donne plus de mordant aussi au plan ambitieux que nous avons pour construire les millions de logements que nous avons à construire. Je pense que je voudrais juste dire en français quelques mots, c'est-à-dire les trois piliers du plan que le Premier ministre va annoncer aujourd'hui se tournent autour de, un, construire plus de logements et réduire les coûts de construction résidentielle. 2, faciliter l'achat ou la location d'une habitation. 3, aider les Canadiens qui n'ont pas les moyens de se loger. Comme disait le ministre Fraser, dans la première pilier, on va s'assurer d'introduire des mesures fiscales importantes qui vont accélérer les appartements, mais qui vont aussi donner la capacité aux constructeurs d'en faire plus, de travailler sur un catalogue de conception de logement, donc une politique industrielle du logement, et effectivement récupérer des terrains publics pour construire plus de logements, parce qu'en mettant ces terrains en location plutôt qu'à la vente, ça va réduire de beaucoup les coûts du logement. Deuxièmement, dans le deuxième pilier, aujourd'hui, en fait, ce qu'on a annoncé hier, c'était l'augmentation de l'achat à la propriété, le régime d'accès à la propriété, de donner des mesures fiscales aux jeunes familles qui veulent éventuellement pouvoir acheter, d'augmenter de 35 à 60 000 la limite possible de retrait du régime du RAP, qu'on dit bien ici en français, pour donner les moyens aux Canadiens de pouvoir acquérir une propriété. La charte hypothécaire qui va donner des meilleurs taux et faciliter l'achat des propriétés, mais aussi de protéger les marges hypothécaires dans la capacité de payer des propriétaires est tout à fait importante, ainsi que la charte des droits des locataires qui, elle, va viser à protéger les locataires. Troisièmement, le troisième pilier, c'est de donner les moyens aux gens d'avoir un toit. À la base, c'est la chose la plus importante qu'on doit s'assurer qu'on vise à réduire l'itinérance au pays et s'assurer que tout le monde a un toit sur la tête. Nous avons proposé des mesures importantes pour le logement abordable, des mesures importantes aussi pour protéger ces investissements qui vont assurer que les gens ne seront pas, ne vivront pas dans des tentes s'ils veulent avoir un toit. Je vais m'arrêter là parce que je sais comme vous le savez, nous sommes dans un marathon de vote et je sais que je dois voter moi-même. Je viens de voir Sean le faire, mais je suis là pour répondre aux questions en français si vous en avez.
OK, merci beaucoup, ministre. Donc, on va commencer la période de questions. We will start the question and answer period. Please, if you have a question on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Donc, si vous avez une question sur Zoom, utilisez la fonction lever la main. We're going to start with the first question. Pramit Mukherjee, Thomson Reuters, please go ahead.
Can you hear me? Am I audible now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So in the last 2 weeks, we have seen a lot of housing announcements coming on our way from the budget. Now, wanted to understand that in this plan, what are the elements which are new and which are the ones which has not been announced earlier? And the second question is, on a number basis, what does your estimate say? That in 2024, how many houses will be built, 2025 and 2026, against the projections that were there earlier? Thank you.
Thanks very much for the question. So your first question is which measures are new. Of course, most of these I should say all of the measures included in the plan are measures that are new since the adoption of the National Housing Strategy and will add incremental output compared to the projections that you would have seen based on measures that are already in place. The measures that were not announced in the past few weeks, and there will be some I don't cover because there's a significant number that have not yet seen public light. But some examples of the new measures include changes to the capital cost allowance to incentivize more home construction by institutional builders. It includes an expansion of low-cost loans, not just through the Canada Builds or Apartment Construction Loan Program, but also for individual homeowners who wish to add an accessory dwelling unit. The information about the new approach to federal lands is entirely new policy that is being shared publicly today. Some of the measures that are attached to the conditions for infrastructure investments and shared priorities we're seeking to establish with provinces was recently announced. Some of the information that will be shared, that is shared new in the document today, include training supports, including more investments for foreign credential recognition and to efforts to help scale up the home building industry. Some of the additional measures that are new today include cracking down on mortgage fraud, which is artificially inflating the cost of home purchases in this country, and consultation to restrict access by investors to properties that are typically reserved for family living. In addition, some of the measures that we're moving forward with that is new today is additional investments in affordable housing construction, additional investments to address homelessness and encampments as well, and a series of other measures that touch on a range of policy, including data collection and other smaller pieces that you'll see throughout the document. But hopefully that will give you a flavor of the investments that have not already been announced over and above the new measures that were announced in recent weeks and since the fall. And the second question, the document doesn't break down by the next 3 years in the very specific way that you put the question, but we have seen estimates from both the parliamentary budget officers recently as yesterday and the Smart Prosperity Institute also recently, indicating that Canada needs to build 3.1 and 3.5 million homes respectively by 2030 in order to cure the supply gap that exists. We believe that this plan will allow us to achieve that very ambitious target. However, it depends on provinces and territories also adopting ambitious measures that are within their areas of jurisdiction. But should provinces and territories match our ambition and implement the measures that are within their control, we believe that we will be able to meet or exceed those very ambitious targets required to cure the supply gap that exists today.
Great. Thank you, Minister. Next question, Emma Godmere, CBC. Go ahead.
Hi there, thanks for this. When you talk about climate-friendly housing options, something that provinces and territories have to commit to access funding, what exactly does that involve? Is that moving away from natural gas, committing to heat pumps? Can you give us more details in that respect?
Certainly. Thanks for the question. So some of this will involve changes to the National Building Code that we'll want provinces and territories to adopt to ensure that we're building houses that meet modern efficiency standards, which has the advantage not only of reducing emissions, but saving money for the homeowner through reduced power bills as well. The National Building Code involves an extensive consultation process that will produce more specific elements of the home building designs, minimum standards that home building designs ought to include. Many provinces are already working in a very smart way in this regard. This also includes determinations on where homes need to be built. We're working right now to establish flood insurance programs and flood maps to ensure, for example, we don't build homes in an area where they're going to be suffering significant damage. So when we talk about climate-friendly homes, we're talking both about building homes where they will be safe from extreme weather events, but also building them to a standard that doesn't exacerbate the climate crisis and creates opportunities for residents to save money through power bills. The specifics will be released as we roll out the next version of the National Building Code when it comes to those specifics around building design.
And did you have a follow-up, Emma?
No, that's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Evan Dyer, CBC, you have your hand raised. You have a question?
Yes, my question is, there was a 10-year housing strategy rolled out by the government in 2017. Is that over? Does this supersede that? What happened to that? And how does this relate to that?
Certainly. Excellent question. The National Housing Strategy is still a very important piece of the overall effort to build more homes that will allow us to solve the housing crisis. However, the dynamic has changed, particularly on the heels of the pandemic, as we've dealt with significant inflationary pressures, increased costs when it comes to home building, and a restricted supply as more and more of the existing supply has been bought up. The measures that are included in the plan we've released today are all incremental to the National Housing Strategy. We're going to rely not just on the measures we put in place for the National Housing Strategy, but these additional measures to deal with the increased pressures that Canadians are facing as a result of changes to the landscape in the home building economy to ensure that we're responding to facts that have fundamentally shifted on the ground over the past few years. So the National Housing Strategy is very much still in place and has an important role to play. The measures that we're introducing today are supplementary and are meant to address the challenging situation that has pulled Canada into a housing crisis that we wish to solve.
And could you just give us a bit more detail on how you plan to open up federally owned land and how that will not reduce demand, but increase supply?
Yeah, thanks very much. This is really important. One of the most challenging aspects of building homes at affordable prices is the cost of land in this country. Canada is a major landowner in communities in every part of the country. We have the opportunity to identify parcels of land that are ideal for home building. We will be producing an interactive map that actually identifies the different lands that are owned by the federal government with information about the appropriateness for home building. Now, there's many properties that we own that are not compatible with home building. Think about military training range with live ammunition. We're not going to make those available for home building. However, a lot of the properties that we own are perfect for home building. Some could be disposed of if the federal government has no interest in maintaining ownership. Others don't even need to go through the process of being declared surplus in order to allow us to build more homes. If we can make more land available, whether it's on a property that's being used for a purpose that's not incompatible with housing, or whether it's a property that has no activity that could be made available for housing, we're going to be able to reduce the input costs in home construction by removing the cost of land from the equation. This is going to reduce the cost of land for builders. And if we maintain ownership, we're going to be able to potentially speed up the process of home building, but also make homes available at lower prices by only making the land available to builders who agree to offer homes at prices that maintain a certain level of affordability. There's going to be a lot of work to roll this plan out in the days ahead, but this is a significant change that we believe has the potential to speed up the process of making land available for home building, maintain federal ownership of public lands, and make homes available at lower prices for people who will live in them, in addition to reducing the cost of construction.
If I could just follow up on that, because I'm a little confused about one thing. At the end of the day, who owns the land under the house?
There will be, it'll depend on the specific project. There will still be some land that could be disposed where the federal government doesn't have an interest in maintaining ownership. But we do intend to make lands available for home building where the federal government will maintain ownership of the land, but will lease the land for the long term over the course of the life cycle of an entire building in exchange for a commitment that over the life cycle of that building, the cost of living in the homes that are built on that land remain at a particular level of affordability. So there will be parcels where ownership is transferred if and when the federal government has no interest in owning those properties, but where the public interest demands maintaining ownership of public land, the federal government will maintain ownership, but make land available through long-term leases to ensure that the land can be used for housing, but ownership would remain with the federal government.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Reminder, if you have a question, to please use the raise hand function on Zoom so I can see your name and note that you do have a question. Next question goes to Paul Vieira, the Wall Street Journal. Go ahead, Paul.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. The policy plan spells out a intention to crack down on private equity in real estate. A parliamentary committee late last year suggested that that also as part of a housing plan that the government reassess the tax treatment of real estate investment trusts. That is not in this document. Was that suggestion rejected by officials?
Look, but this document, not just informed by officials, but decisions are made that are now a part of the plan. The tax treatment of REITs is not part of the specific policies that we're releasing today. We're going to continue to monitor the progress that we actually achieve as real-world data comes in, but we want to make sure we don't interfere with the supply that is continuing to come online. One of the things that we are seeking to do is launch a consultation to restrict home buying activity by large corporate investors when they're not potentially building new large-scale projects, but are buying, for example, single-family homes, which has the potential to increase the price that ordinary Canadians are dealing with in the market when they seek to buy. So the tax treatment of REITs is not part of a policy that's being announced today, but we are going to be launching a consultation on large corporate investors when it comes to buying up stock such as single-family homes.
Do you have any? You're holding a consultation, but what estimates do you have or officials have regarding how much private equity investment is actually in the Canadian real estate market, the Canadian residential real estate market?
Look, I'll have to follow up with the specifics. I don't have the information before you, but Paul, if you'll indulge me, perhaps our team can follow up in the back end to get you the most accurate figure. I'd hesitate to misspeak.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to do one last call for any questions of either minister. One last call for questions before we close down the question and answer period. Are there any other questions? Okay, I see no other hands raised, so I do want to thank the ministers for being here and providing this information and briefing. I know it's a very busy day for you, and there's another major announcement coming up in about 45 minutes time.